Hi, my name is Mia. Welcome to Scrubs and Savings. I'm a 22-year-old new grad nurse documenting how I'm living intentionally, spending joyfully, and giving generously. And today we're going to talk about how I'm not only preparing to move out of my parents' house and into my very first apartment, but also how I'm going to share finances with my partner and save up for a wedding all within the next few years. I know this video is kind of outside of my normal financial video structure, but I wanted to talk about how a lot of bigger picture life changes are affecting my budget and all of my financial planning. So of course, the very first thing that I have to prepare for is moving out of my parents' house. For those of you that don't know, I've never moved out of my house, mainly because I wanted to be close to my family and save money while I was in college. But now that I have my very first big girl job, want to start building life with my partner Nick and decrease my commute time, I think that it's about time for me to leave the nest, so to speak. I know that moving out will be a very expensive endeavor, but luckily I am moving out with my partner and we do make a very similar amount of money. We will be splitting all of our moving costs and living expenses down the middle. So when I first started planning out how much it was going to cost to move out and to live on our own, I of course started looking at rent prices in my area. So I live in a middle cost of living area, so it's not particularly expensive to live where I live, but it's also not super cheap either. And the average rent for a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment is about $1,400, which split down the middle for 2 people is $700, which would not be that bad for rent. However, I have specific requirements of where I want to live that will definitely increase our rent budget. I know I want my commute to work to be less than 20 minutes. It's currently about 40 to 45 minutes to get to work, and that definitely decreases my quality of life. I also want to be close to restaurants, coffee shops, bars, grocery stores, and other public places we would frequent, and basically just live in a walkable area, or as close to one as you can possibly get in a car-dependent area. So with all of that in mind, I'm estimating that our rent will be about $1,700 to $1,800 a month. So my half would be $850 to $900, which on the low end would be about 15% of my gross income. But rent is not the only thing that I have to save up for, because there will definitely be significant upfront costs when it comes to moving into our very first apartment. So the total amount I estimated that we would need to move out of our parents' houses was about $10,000, which would cover first month's rent, a security deposit, application fees, and other administrative costs, moving costs, and very essential furniture and household goods. So the amount that I need to personally save for our apartment fund is $5,000. I currently have $936.50 in my savings account specifically for our apartment fund, and we don't plan on moving out until April of 2026, which will be about the 1-year point since we graduated college and started working our full-time jobs. And to have enough saved by the time we move out, I will have to set aside $451.50 every month, which is completely doable. And Nick also has some money set aside for our apartment fund and is also saving a certain amount each month to be prepared for when we move out as well. Now, as Nick and I are planning this big move together and will be splitting our living expenses, we've started talking very seriously about how we want to handle money as a couple. As for when we move out together, but we've decided that we want to keep things separate, as in individual accounts, individual budgets, and just splitting shared expenses right when we move out. We think this approach will allow us to get used to being financially independent from our parents and figure out how much it costs to live on our own. Then, at least from what we've talked about, once we get engaged, we're considering creating a shared budget in the budgeting software that we both use, known as ynab, to pool all of our money towards our shared living expenses and shared goals like our wedding, grad school and down payment fund while still keeping separate accounts. We still need to work out the specific details about who's contributing what money to what accounts and how we manage day-to-day expenses in that financial structure. However, that would definitely be a conversation that we have before we get engaged. Then once we get married, we both agreed that we want to create a joint checking and savings account in both of our names for household expenses and sinking funds. However, we both want to have our own checking and savings accounts just for our own fun money. And I really like this hybrid approach because having those shared accounts will help us build the life that we want to live together, but our individual accounts will allow us to maintain some independence with some of our purchases. And of course, we'll have a lot of conversations regarding money throughout the course of our relationship, so we may decide to handle things differently once we get into each different stage of our lives together. Even though we're still trying to figure out the details about how we want to combine finances and aren't even engaged yet, we're both saving money for a future wedding because we both know that it will be a very big expense. We don't have an exact timeline of when we want to get married. We are both thinking that it will be in about 2 to 3 years if everything works out. Like I said before, we're both currently saving for the wedding, but different amounts each month because of our individual expenses and savings goals. I'm saving just a tad bit more money each month than Nick because I don't have to contribute money towards my Roth IRA, nor do I have to save up money if I want to go to grad school. So currently I am saving about $200 per month for a future wedding, and Nick is saving $120 per month. We also don't have a very specific budget of how much we want our wedding to cost, but my ballpark estimate of how much it would cost to have a bigger wedding would be about $15,000. And again, once we get engaged and get into the thick of wedding planning, we're gonna have a lot more in-depth conversations about what we want our wedding to look like, and that of course will affect our wedding budget and our monthly personal budgets. I think it's also important to note that neither of us expect our families to contribute to our wedding fund, so we would have to save for that amount on our own. But one thing that will definitely help us achieve our savings goals is that I will be receiving my sign-up bonus in 2 installments in 2026 and 2027, which in total will be $20,000 before taxes come out. And the biggest takeaway that I've had so far about juggling all of these financial goals with a partner is the importance of having these conversations pretty early on in the relationship, and that being honest about our individual financial situations and money feelings makes all of these goals much more attainable. And I would love to hear from those of you that are in a similar situation that I'm in, juggling so many financial goals with a partner, and how you guys approach money. Thank you for watching this video all the way through. If you did, make sure to like and subscribe because I will always keep you guys in the know of my finances, and I truly hope to see you guys in the next one. Bye guys.